Gal Kalev, welcome back to Bold and Blunt Video. It's great to have you, and I see that you are in Jerusalem again, yes?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Back
so let's talk about what's going on, the latest. I know that there has been a ground war, escalation of things against Hezbollah in the north. Talk a little bit about what's taking place now.
Yeah, we are fighting a multi-arena war. We spoke for a year about the war in Gaza. Now we have a de facto war in Lebanon. And as of yesterday, there's words that Israeli ground forces have came in. As you all recall, after October 7th, when Hamas launched its atrocious attack, Hezbollah, another Iran's proxy, joined from Lebanon, fired missiles and rockets, leading to a situation where the entirety population of northern Israel had to evacuate it. They've been displaced. They're refugees living in central Israel. And what the Israeli government announced about 2 weeks ago is that we're, after a year, are going to do something about it. And over the last 2 weeks, we've noticed what we've done about it, things that can be described even by the most secular and atheist people as an act of God. The beeper attack that took off a lot of the Hezbollah leadership, and then other heroic and unmanageable attacks, including taking down the head of Hezbollah, that have enabled us apparently to finally take care of it, and including in a ground operation type of way.
And so glancing through the headlines today, I notice that the media is already starting the narrative that Israel is the aggressor here, and Hezbollah, just as with Hamas, is more the victim. So this, to me, type of narrative plays into the theme of your latest book, The Assault on Judaism, and you lay the blame at the feet of the assault on the Israel nation, largely in the media and on the West. Can you talk about your book in context of what's taking place now?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a little bit like what you just discussed at the beginning of trying to find a narrative, an angle of this Hezbollah attack that will blame the Jews and Israel is deja vu to a year ago. When I remember we spoke after October 7th, and everybody was with us for a day or two, and we were wondering, well, how are they going to spin this to attack the Jews and blame the Jews? And certainly that came out pretty quickly. And that's exactly what my book does. For years, I've been discussing about the brewing assault on Judaism that's coming from the West. I've said that while Iran and Hamas and various Iran's proxies have the ability to kill many Jews, they don't have the ability to destroy Judaism, but the West does. The destruction mechanism of Judaism exists in the West, and that's what I discuss in the book, whether it's through the ICC, which, as we speak, are planning, putting the infrastructure for the arrest of Jewish Israeli Jews en masse, soldiers who they're accused of participating in a crime to starve Palestinians, whether it's settlers, whether it's people who support soldiers, basically all Israeli Jews. We have different intensities. We have incitement in the media, the setting of global public opinions against the Jewish state, and basically a campaign to delegitimize the idea of a Jewish state, and through that delegitimize the idea of Judaism. So what I do in the book is I follow the event that came after October 7th. I look at the last year and show how it became almost, how not surprising that the media would be able to set up global public opinions, because I'm part of the media, and a lot of the people who've been engaging in this are my friends. So I'm able to kind of get insight into this. People who are not anti-Semites or anything like that, but tell me things like, headlines are the one that drive clicks and revenues, and media is a business. And explain to me how the media, it was almost inevitable that the media, many of the journalists here that are operating in the ecosystem of an echo chamber that is very, very anti-Israeli, intertwined with the conflict industry, people in the UN, the EU. So I explain in the book how was it that the media, once again, as they done a century ago, was able to set global public opinions against the Jews, how governments that at first were very, very friendly to Jews. Justin Trudeau of Canada was, very appreciative of his statements on October 8th, October 9th, but then the media incited the public in Canada. The Canadians, some Canadians demonstrated during a dinner he had in Vancouver. And then the next day, he switches rhetoric and accuses the Jews in the same accusations that have been accused for forever of killing women, children, and babies. He, of course, makes know that it's certain types of Jews, the Israeli Jews, not all Jews. Nobody notices that, perhaps. And then proceeds with actions, embargoing, putting an embargo on Israel, which is a zero-sum game that war is de facto supporting Hamas. That's just one example. So I show in the book how the media incited the public created public pressure on governments, and governments eventually had to react. The same governments, Western governments, that vehemently defend the Jews and the Jewish state from its physical attack are now partaking in the ideological assault on Judaism. I show how dangerous this thing is. I show how precedented this is. And I show how this assault on Judaism from the West is also a threat to U.S. national security and to global stability.
And it seems to me, just to further that point, that what you're talking about in terms of the media's influence here is part of the demoralization process that you predict will be center of the war against Judaism in the future. You call it DAS, demoralization, attrition, and sanctions. So walk us through a little bit of that, because I see that taking place right now in present day.
Absolutely. It's taking place on multiple levels. And I try to, in the book, to outline the nuances and the intricacies, because it is in multiple levels, just like the previous assault on Judaism. And I do compare in the book this assault to previous assault. Last century, there was an attempt to eradicate Judaism by killing a Jew by Jew with a similar template. There was an ideological assault with a movement of anti-Semitism. There was the setting of the public minds. Today, it's not an attempt to kill Jews physically, Jew by Jew. It's an attempt to negate the idea of Judaism, just like it was all the way back in the 2nd century BC through the Greeks, and just like it was in the 15th century in Spain. And that's done, as you mentioned, through what I call DAS, demoralization, attrition, and sanctions. And I can just tell you anecdotally, I was in a, we've spoken in the past about the February 1st U.S. action, the executive order that Biden signed to sanction Israeli Jews. Now, at first, my friends in the Democratic parties and others said, well, that's only against violent settlers. And indeed, the executive order of February 4th specifically mentioned 4 Israeli criminals, young thugs, if I can call them this way, who engage in vandalism, stones throwing, in no doubt deplorable criminal actions, and were arrested by the Israeli authorities. I mean, it's obviously bizarre that you single out those Israeli criminals and not. I mean, there's much more anti-Arab violence and rhetoric in the United States and Europe, but putting that aside. But the executive order of February 1st also gave basically a license to sanction Israeli Jews to the Treasury Department and the State Department. And it included a very broad mandate. Even those who undermine the U.S. objective of a two-state solution. So basically, in theory, the Treasury and State can now sanction people that are against the two-state solution. So I'm not going to talk about my views about a two-state solution. I've talked about it in previous programs, but the two-state solution is opposed by the vast majority of Palestinians and Israeli Jews alike. There's this thing called the First Amendment and freedom of speech, but I guess that excludes this particular executive order. So we have this this executive order, and then it wasn't just for settlers. It then moved on to sanctioning civil organization leaders. They in a related action, they basically hijacked the Leahy Act and tried to sanction the units in the Israeli military. There is sanctioning now of people who help fund those people who were sanctioned. If you sanction money, Israeli bank or anything will do anything with you. They also sanction those people. Like in the United States, you have, if you're accused of a crime, you sometimes have pro bono lawyers and people that are helping alleged criminals. There's also, by the way, this other concept in America: you're innocent until proven guilty, but not in this February 1st executive order. So all of this, what it creates is a sense of demoralization. And I'm deliberately now using a very low octane example. There's much more radical examples. We mentioned the ICC and the other extreme. But I was in a party the other day, And it was sort of like party would be an exaggeration, but it was sort of like an event, sort of a fundraiser for important causes. And we were talking, and at one point, some people were like, "Wait a minute, the person we're talking to is a settler that lives in Judea." There was like, "Wait, you did this?" The slight hesitation that, wait, are we allowed to be associated with you because we don't want to be sanctioned by Biden? So I mean, it's not, same thing in a humorous kind of way. As you know, I live by Shuk Machne Yehuda, the market where Israelis shop and socialize, Israeli Jews and Arabs. And now there's a joke, if you're, when you're paying with a credit card, people says, well, let's see if you got sanctioned by Biden. Am I going to put my credit card and it's going to be declined? And I said, wait, maybe I was sanctioned by Biden too. Maybe I said something in the two-state solution. So, I don't want to exaggerate this, but there's no doubt that, there's nobody that so far has been sanctioned because he spoke against the two-state solution. But it definitely created insecurity on a micro level, as I just mentioned now. And this goes back, this is, by the way, the first time, the February 1st executive order by Biden that we spoke about is the first time in 80 years that there are sanctions specifically targeted against Jews, Israeli Jews. And again, this time it gives a broad mandate to Treasury and to state to sanction basically based on their judgment. And they've been using it. And that leads in turns to this demoralization. We're doing something wrong. And maybe I should not be using my credit card. Maybe I should be careful about who I'm associating with. When Theodor Herzl founded Zionism, he said this is a way to restore Jewish security. The February 1st action by Biden is the reverse. It is, sometimes, as I explain in the book, the assault on Judaism is done by well-intentioned people, by good people. And that's the same thing actually happened in the last century. Not everybody that participated in an attempt to murder Jews did it because they were anti-Semites. They did it because they were German patriots and they were told to do that. Some of them. I'm not excusing it. But we're in a situation where a friendly nation, the United States, that vehemently helps and defend Israel in the physical attack, and we're very appreciative of that, is now participating in the ideological attack. And it's not just that; it's also through rhetoric. We talked about Schumer's speech in the Senate floor, basically accusing Jews again being a pariah opposed by the rest of the world, the Jewish state, implying that Israelis are bigots, those who object to two-state solution, which is basically the vast majority of people on the left and on the right. But the other thing, Cheryl, is that I remember Biden saying that America is an idea.
Mm-hmm.
The February 1st executive order is the most profound negation of the idea of America. The idea of freedom of speech, the idea of targeting Jews, the idea of instilling Jewish insecurity. Over the summer, I was in the States, as you know, I covered the election. I went to rallies, including to Kamala Harris rally, and the slogan is, we're not going back. The February 1st executive order against Israeli Jew is the most profound expression to Jews, you're going back. You're going back to an age of insecurity. And it's not, and you can no longer say, oh no, it's not us, it's them. It's not, us, German Jews in Berlin in the 1930s. It's, the Russian Jewish immigrants. You can't say that anymore. You could say that maybe on February 2nd when it says, okay, it was just against forced settlers. But now that you see it expanding, you see the military being sanctioned, you see now, the Europeans are the EU foreign policy chief is suggesting that they would sanction ministers of the Israeli government that were elected because he doesn't like the way they speak. Meaning, we're talking about a suppression of freedom. We're talking about voter suppression. We're talking about, a variety of American principles that were sacrificed for this one little element in the assault on Judaism. So that's one of the things I talk about in the book, not just to show that there is an assault on Judaism coming from the West, not just to show that this is the path to the destruction of Judaism, not just to show this assault on Judaism is a threat to U.S. national security, and we can discuss this, but also to show how advanced this assault is, how people are willing to invest in it. Canada sacrificed the environment. Canada is for the environment, but they decided to effectively sanction an Israeli environmental organization, remove its tax exempt status because it helps the military, because soldiers breathe fresh air. Meaning the assault on Judaism through the West is extreme, it's happening, it's alive, it's an imminent threat to Judaism, a threat to global stability in the United States, and nobody's focusing on that. So with this book, I'm trying to get people to focus on it, and I'm glad that we're covering it here. And I have to say that I'm glad that even people in government, in the media, people that I'm sort of accusing of being part of the assault, willingly or unwillingly are engaging with it and reading the book.
And I have many other questions for you, but I'm going to have to hold off until we meet again on October 7th, which will be the 1-year anniversary of the horrific terror attacks on the Jewish people. But I just want to say thank you for writing this book. I haven't finished reading it yet, but I look forward to it. The Assault on Judaism. Stay safe, Gal, and we will talk again next week. Thank you.
Looking forward.